Welcome back to Blake's Takes, everyone. I'm your host, Blake, and today's going to be a solo dolo review. No Garrett, but I do want to talk about Scream 6. I did see it opening night, and I just really have no patience to talk about it. I want to talk about it now, so let's. And I know I am the Scream fanatic. I know Garrett's not as much of a Scream fan. He still has to catch up. I think he still has yet to see the third, fourth, and fifth one. So, you know what? That's okay. We'll let them catch up. Everyone catches up on their horror movies at their own pace. So let's talk about Scream 6. And for those of you listening, it will be a spoiler-free review only for the beginning. I will dive into spoilers later in the review, and I will let you know when I do start diving into spoilers because we have to talk about spoilers for this one. Okay, so Scream 6. I was actually very excited for this Scream. I was a fan of Scream 5. I love the new characters that they introduced to us in Scream 5. Upon a rewatch of that one, I did enjoy it even more the second time around. And I was honestly really excited for Scream 6, now taking place in New York. And I was a bit skeptical about Scream 6 taking place in New York because I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies with that setting. You know, I think it's very hard to pull off a horror movie that's set in New York, but I think they did a very well job at pulling it off. So the premise of this Scream is going to be our main characters with Tara Carpenter, Sam Carpenter, Chad Meeks Martin, and Mindy Meeks Martin, all following their, college adventure. They move to New York and follow them throughout their college education in their freshman year. And as we do know, you're never safe. Ghostface will follow you wherever you go. He always comes back. But yeah, I was a huge fan of these new characters that we did get in Scream 5. And I really love them even more in this Scream 6. We really get to see their growth as a group. But first, I do want to talk about Ghostface in itself, because from the trailers that we were getting, it seemed like this Ghostface, like he said in the trailer, I'm something like you've never seen before. And that's exactly what we got. This is a Ghostface that we've never seen before. This Ghostface was ruthless, a menace. He wasn't clumsy. At times, it almost seemed like, he was flying like a bat in the wind. Like this is what he was meant to do. And the kills in this were absolutely ruthless. Definitely a step up from the last Scream. I mean, the gore was a step up as well. Everything about the kills was a step up. And to be honest, some of these Ghostface scenes have become my favorite scenes within the whole franchise. And I'm not lying. So no bullshit. And you will know what scenes I am talking about when you go see this movie. So yeah, without spoiling anything, I think this movie pulled off a lot of things. I think it pulled off the New York environment. I think it pulled off the grittier Ghostface that we got. I love some of the relationship building that we did get in this movie. And yeah, the characters that had survived from Scream 5 that were also in this were absolutely amazing in this movie. Jenna Ortega, we got a lot more of her as Tara Carpenter. I am really glad that we get to see more of Jenna Ortega, as she's been killing it, absolutely killing it this last year and a half or so. I mean, between X, between Wednesday, between Scream 5 last year, and now Scream 6 this year, she has just been absolutely killing it in the horror genre. And that's just displayed even more in Scream 6 as well. But I also want to talk about Melissa Barrera. I think she's a pretty underrated actress, in my opinion. I mean, she has given us some great performances between these last few Screams. I love her in The Heights, a musical from 2021, which was also written by Lin-Manuel, the same guy who wrote Hamilton. I've really enjoyed everything that I've seen her in so far, and she has done a very great job at, continuing this Scream franchise. I mean, there's a lot of big shoes to fill when it comes to this Scream franchise with being the leading final girl. I mean, Sidney Prescott, Neve Campbell, probably the best final girl of any horror movie. Let's settle down. I know we got Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode. I know we have some great final girls, but from personal preference, even though the Halloween franchise is my favorite, it's kind of hard to not say that Neve Campbell is the best final girl, at least the most badass. We can all agree that Neve Campbell is the most badass final girl. But yeah, Melissa Barrera has done a great job at continuing this franchise, filling those shoes. And I know I'm giving a lot of praise right now, so let's talk about some of the things that I didn't like, spoiler-free wise. So obviously the biggest thing that me personally that I didn't enjoy in this Scream was really the last 15 minutes. I mean, that last stage, this final act of Scream 6, the whole reveal, the motive at the end. And like I said, I'm not going to go into that right now. We'll go into that during the spoiler reaction. But it was kind of a letdown. I feel like these past two Screams, it's kind of lost that whodunit factor. That was a heavy element with those first three Screams, with subtle hints here and there, with the camera work, making you think, like, making the audience think, shit, maybe it's him, maybe it's her. I feel like with those first three Screams, it made the audience think a lot. And with these last two Screams, it doesn't make the audience think as much. They're kind of presenting it to you in your face, like spoon feeding you who it could be, with being how meta they want to make themselves. And we see that a lot from Jasmine Savoy Brown's character, Mindy Meeks. She's kind of the Randy now of the franchise, which makes sense, being that Randy was their uncle. But, just telling us how these requels works, giving us the rules to the requels, but more in sense, kind of spoon feeding us of who it could be instead of telling us the rules and then giving us subtle hints of, okay, maybe it is this person, maybe it's that person. So those are my two biggest gripes kind of with this movie. I know from the trailers that we all know Kirby Reed from Scream 4 does make a return. Hayden Panettiere does reprise her role as Kirby. And now I will say, as much as I love Kirby in Scream 4, she's definitely my favorite character in Scream 4. I don't think she's used to her full potential in this one. I don't think they don't really like dive too much into her story, and kind of makes her return seem more random than it should be. But happy to see that she survived Scream 4, because I was pissed when she went down, and the way she went down too. Like, damn, bro. Man was just so salty that she didn't talk to him for 4 years in high school. Come on, man. And I also kind of thought the way that they handled Gail's return in this movie as well. And as we do know, Dewey and Sidney do not return in this Scream. As we know, Nev Campbell did not return because of some contract disputes. And David Arquette as Dewey obviously does not return because, he's dead from Scream 5. Now, as far as the legacy characters, let's talk about that for a second, because I do think we can feel the absence of Sidney Prescott in this movie and Dewey. And, at some point we were going to have to leave those legacy characters in the past. It was going to have to happen at some point. They can't be in every Scream movie forever, but you can feel their absence, as I really think Sidney and Dewey just obviously, has carried this franchise. They really have. Gale Weathers alone does not get it done, but that's okay, because Dewey and Sidney set a high bar, and just the way that they handled, Gale Weathers' story in this one, wasn't the biggest fan. So overall, spoiler free wise, what I can say is that this Scream did a lot of things different. They tried a lot of different things, and I think it played off very well in the end. Just wasn't a fan of some of the decisions at the very end of the movie when it came down to the end. Just some of the creative decisions that they did make. But I thought they played off really well with the setting of New York. Like I said before, I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies in New York, but this one works really well. I loved the new characters that we got in Scream 5, and I think they are even better in Scream 6. I think you will love them. If you're a fan of the Scream franchise, I genuinely do think you will enjoy this Scream. I think you will have a fun time with it. And I think you'll probably, if you do have some cons about this movie, I think it'll be the same cons that, the general public kind of agrees on, or what I'm talking about. But I think this is a solid entry in the Scream franchise, 6 movies deep. It's hard to pull off an installment this deep into the franchise, By Scream 6 in the Halloween franchise, we're getting Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, and everyone fucking hates that movie. Except me, a guilty pleasure right there. But yeah, I mean, everyone talks shit about that movie, because they try to do things so different by that point that it just kind of takes away from the other Halloween movies, or doesn't really make any sense. But with Scream 6, I think you can tell they still try to pay homage to the past Screams, but still doing things different in their own manner. But all right, let's talk about spoilers because, man, it is hard to talk about these Scream movies without talking about spoilers. So we're about to head into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. Because like I said, I do still highly recommend seeing this Scream movie. I think you'll enjoy it. So go see it, come back, and listen to the spoiler review now. Okay, let's dive into it. So right off the bat, I'm going to start off with what I didn't like in this movie. And that's ultimately the Ghostface reveal. So let me break it down for you. In this movie, we see what they call themselves the Core Four. We have Tara, Sam, Mindy, and Chad. You know, really become a family, and I really enjoy that aspect of this movie. I love the relationships that they build. You know, we have Chad and Tara building a romantic relationship that I really do enjoy and hope they explore it down the road and more Screams as well. And so, yeah, the Ghostface at the end, we get a reveal that it is, you know, Quinn and Ethan. And Ethan was rooming with Chad and Quinn was rooming with Tara for their freshman year of college. And this reveal to me was just, it was very underwhelming. On top of that, the detective that has been helping them throughout this movie has been helping them all along because guess what? He's their dad. But on top of that as well, we also find out that this is the family of Richie. That's right. Richie from Scream 5, Sam's boyfriend that turned out to be Ghostface in the last movie with Amber. While I still enjoyed that movie a lot, Amber and Richie as Ghostface, I think, was one of the weaker points in that movie. Now, I think their motive was still better than Scream 6, you know, just being those toxic fandoms that, you know, you do have in this world. There are plenty of toxic fans, and I think their motivation was still better than Scream 6. But I do think, you know, Richie and Amber being Ghostface was one of the weaker parts of that movie. But yeah, so it turns out that Ethan and Quinn and this detective are all part of Richie's family. You know, Quinn and Ethan being Richie's brother and sister, and Detective Wayne Bailey being his father. So, I mean, once again, we get like a little Mrs. Loomis situation as to where, you know, their kid dies in the previous Scream movie, and then they just decide to go all crazy and take vengeance and revenge on the person who killed, you know, their kid. But the reasoning in itself, you know, building like this whole shrine, helping Richie create, you know, this movie, I just thought it was weak, man. I'm like, why are we still focusing on Richie? Like, get him out of here. I don't give a fuck what Richie or his family is up to. I don't think it had, you know, that big of an impact on the Scream franchise in itself. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. And like I said, it just left the reveal as like, huh? Like, you know, a lot of these reveals in the previous Scream movies, once it happens, you're like, oh shit. You know, even though Billy and Stu might have been more of the obvious reveals, they still did a lot of things in that movie to, you know, take the heat off of Billy, take the heat off of Stu. And so once it finally happened, you were like, oh shit. And I feel like with this movie and with Scream 5, it kind of feels now like, wait, what? Wait, why? Maybe not so much Scream 5. Scream 5, you know, the reveal, that was still good. It was still a shocking reveal. But this one, I was like, what? Wait, what? What? Why? So, you know, I didn't really feel it at all. You know, this final scene taking place in the shrine room, which let's talk about the shrine room for a second, because I thought the shrine room was pretty amazing. Like, it was really fun to see all those Easter eggs in there. Now, the reasoning behind the shrine room, like I said, I do not like, with Richie's, you know, dad helping him collect all these memorabilias and props from all the murders. But I just did not like the reasoning behind the shrine room. And it was definitely a missed opportunity not having Sydney walk through this shrine room. Because, I mean, my God, I mean, yeah, while a lot of these murders throughout these movies have impacted a lot of other characters besides Sydney, I mean, man, when it boils down to it, Sydney is the main reason for all this shit. So I think it was a missed opportunity not having, you know, Sydney walk through this shrine room. That would have been something else. And I can say another thing that they could have used more of is, giving us more detective work as well. I feel like with the first 3 Screams, there was a lot of detective work where you even had, characters go off on their own doing detective work, kind of building their own relationship with each other. And I feel like we haven't really gotten much detective work in these last 2 Screams. As much as these are horror movies, it's just as much a mystery movie as well. And, Scooby-Doo, it's time to solve this mystery shit, man. So, I mean, that goes back to kind of being spoon-fed of who we should think is Ghostface, as to where we're not getting the detective work in this movie to make us think, could it be this person? Could it be that person? Who knows? Those are the moments that make the reveal at the end even greater. And this kind of goes back to what we've said about Ghostface in the past as well. With Billy and Stu, we got a lot of screen time with those characters throughout the whole movie. So it kind of made the reveal at the end that much greater. And man, we literally, the Ghostface in this movie, we do not get barely any screen time. When we get maybe a few scenes of her in the very beginning, talking to Tara, talking to Sam, being the roommate, Ethan. We have this kid, dragging in last second to every scene, really getting just like a line here and there from him. Played by Jack Champion as well, who was also Spider in Avatar: The Way of Water, which I did not like Spider in Avatar: The Way of Water. So maybe that's why I didn't like him as well. But we barely get any screen time with them. So once again, when we get this reveal at the end that they are the ghost faces, we're just like, what? So I kind of miss having a decent amount of screen time with certain characters that do end up being Ghostface. But yeah, back to the detective work, we really thought that was going to come into play with Kirby. Kirby does return, and she is a FBI agent. And now, yeah, it's still not as believable because she literally looks like a child. And I'm glad they made a joke about that. Gail Weathers makes a joke. She's like, I didn't know they were letting teens into the FBI now, which, yeah, Kirby literally does look like a teenager. That's just Hayden Panettiere, man. She's 33, but yeah, she looks young. But I think Kirby wasn't used to her full advantage. We really didn't get much detective work from, an FBI agent. Even Gail Weathers, who always does her own detective work, we see her come to the conclusion of some detective work, but we never get to see her actually do it. But I do want to give a shout out to Kirby for giving my man Roman Bridgers a shout out for being the only solo Ghostface. She was like, props to him for the ambition, which I know I'm on the unpopular opinion for this, but I really do enjoy Scream 3. Maybe it is a movie that has grown on me the older I've gotten. But I do like Scream 3. I do like Roman Bridger as Ghostface, and I'm glad she gave him the props for being the only solo Ghostface. But okay, spoiler wise, those were my main gripes with it. But like I said, there are a lot of positives about this movie. Some of these scenes in this Scream have honestly become some of my favorite in the franchise. There are some great Ghostface chase scenes in this movie, some great suspense scenes. And the first one that pops to my mind is the subway scene. So that is one scene that we do see in the trailer that looked very interesting, and I was very excited to see that scene. And boy, did it deliver! It fucking delivered. I mean, that was a great suspenseful scene. With the flickering lights in the subway, getting separated from the group because of the crazy New York subway system. Very realistic, and it is Halloween. So you have all these other extras, New Yorkers in the movie that are wearing Halloween masks, whether it's between, a Michael Myers mask, a wolf mask, Wolfman, and other Ghostface masks. So you really don't know who's really Ghostface and who's not. And I think they do a great job at building up the tension for when Ghostface actually does appear. And I mean, it's a very long scene too, so it really, really built it up. And I'm not going to lie, I really enjoyed that it was Halloween night, and I think they could have played into that even more, that it was Halloween. And, Scream movies love to throw in those Halloween Easter eggs in there between, Sam Carpenter having that last name, Tara Carpenter having that Carpenter last name, which realistically, Sam's last name is actually Loomis, Sam Loomis, who we know as Dr. Sam Loomis from the Halloween franchise. So, just given those Halloween references throughout these Scream movies, I think they could have played into it being Halloween night even more and giving, those diehard fans those small little references. Another scene that I really liked was in the bodega, or, the convenience store. I don't know how many people are familiar with the word, but honestly, I wasn't familiar with the word bodega until recently. But it is like a convenience store in New York. And this was a scene that we also get a glimpse of in the trailer and had a lot of people talking because we see Ghostface use a shotgun in the scene. And as we know, when it comes to, Michael Myers, Ghostface, a lot of people only want them to use their weapon, whether it's, the kitchen knife with Michael Myers. But when it comes to the kills, a lot of people want to see them only use one weapon, and that's their weapon. But I honestly really enjoyed Ghostface picking up a shotgun and using it. I thought it was badass. I thought it was ruthless. It really did fit for the Ghostface that we did get in this movie. And just another scene that really knew how to build like suspense and that New York lighting. I think it all fit really well with the New York setting for this movie. So those are two scenes right there that I absolutely love. I think have become some of my favorite scenes in the movie, my favorite in the franchise. And yeah, if I'm going to talk about, kills for a second, even the kill where they have to, Sam's, boy that she's been seeing from the building right across from her, New York buildings. They're very close to each other. So you can see one another from the window. And there's a scene where Ghostface is in Tara's apartment and they have to climb over to Sam's boyfriend's apartment, through a ladder, right? So he grabs a ladder, places it, from window to window, and they have to crawl across a ladder to get to the other side in order to escape Ghostface. And man, what a scene this was too, because yeah, buildings are close enough in New York to do that, but they were up high enough. So if they fall, you're done. And we see, Tara, Sam, and Mindy make it across that ladder. But then, Mindy's girlfriend is trying to climb across a ladder, and she's the last person. And Ghostface finally makes it into the room, shakes that ladder, and makes her fall off. I mean, the kills in this were just ruthless, but they were great, and that's exactly what we needed for this Scream. But yeah, once again, let's talk about Sam for a second, because like I said before, Melissa Barrera has really done a very well job at, filling some big shoes as the final girl in the Scream franchise. So it's a tough task to pull off, but I think she's done a really well job at it. I've really enjoyed her character. But one thing I still do not like about what we're seeing with Sam's character is that she has these hallucinations of her dad, Billy Loomis. And look, I love Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis, one of my favorite Ghostface of this whole franchise. But I am not a fan of the hallucinations. I mean, like, bro, yeah, it's her blood, but she doesn't know her fucking dad, man. Like, there was never any relationship. There was never any nothing. Like, she knows the history, she knows the past, but I am just not a big fan of these hallucinations. And, they CGI his face and everything. And I don't know, it just kind of makes the scene a little weird. Like, sure, she can have those moments where, she pauses and she's thinking about her dad, but I'm not a fan of the hallucinations. I think there's other ways to work around, her character, her having her history be a part of her character without involving, those hallucinations of Billy Loomis. Like, we get it. We get it. She is the son of a serial killer. We understand that. And we saw the hallucinations from the last movie, but that's something that she's got to move on from. And I think that she had moved on from. We saw at the very end of the movie, before she killed Richie, she's like, you forgot one rule: never fuck with the daughter of a serial killer. Like, she's accepted that, So I think it's more a conflict within herself now. And not so much that she's the daughter of Billy Loomis. Like she said to that therapist, she enjoyed killing Richie. So that's more of a conflict within herself now, Oh, I mean, I probably could have said this in the spoiler free part, but I was a huge fan of the mask that they used throughout this Ghostface. Well, I guess I couldn't because this is kind of a spoiler. So if you've seen it, as you know, they do leave a Ghostface mask at the scene of the murders, counting down from the fifth Scream movie with the killers of Richie and Amber all the way down to Billy Loomis, or they try to get down to Billy Loomis's mask. And that is the mask that we see that looks, worn out, cracked, and all that. And similar to what they've kind of done with the Michael Myers mask in newer Halloween movies. And I was a huge fan of that. I love that we got to see, the different variations of the mask. Hasn't really like changed much, obviously, design wise, but there are some masks that look a little different than the others. I think that made this Ghostface look even more menacing was that used and abused Ghostface mask. So I mean, man, favorite characters like that core four, I absolutely loved. Melissa Barrera as Sam, Jenna Ortega as Tara, Mason Gooding as Chad, and Jasmine Savoy Brown as Mindy. Those four right there that we got from the last Scream movie, beautiful, beautiful characters. Least favorite characters, that has to be probably Jack Champion as Ethan, because we really don't get any of him. Like, same thing with Quinn. Like, I'm telling you, man, we don't really get much about these Ghostface, and I was just not a fan of the motive at all. Favorite kill. Ooh, favorite kill. Let's talk about favorite kill. Because I want to know your favorite kill, but let me think of my favorite kill. Oh, you know what? Talking about favorite kill, that actually brings up a point. There's definitely some people in this movie that should have died. I'm looking at you, Chad. I'm looking at a lot of people that should have died in this movie. But especially Chad. That motherfucker got stabbed so many times by two Ghostface. It is not even funny how many times he got stabbed. But I mean, I'm glad he's not dead because he became my favorite character of this movie. But yeah, he's pulling a Dewey right now. That's what he's doing. And same thing with Kirby. I mean, she got shot and she got stabbed in the same place as last time in Scream 4. But she's still going strong. So favorite kill wise, you know what? Maybe it is that ladder scene when Ghostface shakes Anika off the ladder. Because that heights is not my thing. So that scene alone had my hands sweating on top of how the way she hit that, dumpster down below and then showing her face. Yeah, that might have been my favorite kill of the Scream. Opening scene, I thought was a step up from Scream 5 as well. As Scream 5 was the first time that, there was no kill in the opening scene. But what they did with this opening scene in Scream 6, I thought, was definitely creative. I like that we first get a kill. And at first, it's going really quick. I'm thinking, okay, here comes the Scream 6 slash, the slash they do before we get the title card. And he does it. And actually, who was it? Flash Thompson, the dude who plays Flash Thompson in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, gives us our very first kill, actually. Because we know that because he takes off the Ghostface mask. And I'm like, oh, this is different. Like, are we going to know who Ghostface is throughout the whole movie? But I'm like, once the scene started going on, I'm like, yeah, there's no way. Because, he's dead. He's going to be dead. So the way they orchestrated that scene, I thought was creative and fun and a step up from Scream 5. Was it my favorite opening scene? No, I think it's kind of impossible to beat the opening scenes from Scream 1 and Scream 2. Scream 2 was a very good opening scene as well. But I can say that it was a step up from the last one. Got to give a shout out to them, playing Red Right Hand. That is Scream's song. I know you Peaky Blinder fans. Look, I started watching that show too. I know it's going to make me think of Peaky Blinders, but hands down, that is a Scream franchise song. And they incorporate it 2 times in this movie. Very happy about that. Gotta play that song every Scream movie. It is not in Scream 4. That is the only Scream they don't have Red Right Hand playing. Maybe another reason to add to the board of why Scream 4 might be my least favorite Scream. Now, if I were to give a ranking of this franchise now, that's tough because right now I do have this at a 3 out of 5 stars on Letterbox because it's tough because I think it's on the same par of the last Scream. I think each one does things better than the other. I like the story better in Scream 5. So it's tough. Each one has their pros and cons. So obviously I have the first Scream at number 1. That is a perfect horror movie. At number 2, I have Scream 2. And now this is where it gets tricky because at 3, I have Scream 3. And I know that's a hot take, but look, I love Sidney Prescott. Nev Campbell just really carries this franchise. I love David Arquette. I love some of the side characters that we get in Scream 3. People argue like, is Roman Bridgers the weakest Ghostface? But I personally like him. I love the Hollywood setting of that movie. So I don't know, man. It still feels very cinematic. So as of right now, and yeah, it sucks because the kills weren't as gruesome as they usually are because there was the censorship thing going on with gore in movies, so they couldn't be as gory as possible. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that could change. But as of right now, I still have Scream 3 at 3. And then at 4, this is going to boil down to either being Scream 5 or Scream 6. Now, I enjoy both a lot. As of right now, I think I'm going to go Scream 5 at number 4, Scream 6 at number 5. And even though Scream 6 is at number 5, that's not to say it's bad at all. Like, none of these movies in the Scream franchise are really, bad. They all have their goods. They all have their bads. And then obviously at, number 6, I do have Scream 4 coming in at last place. But yeah, when I say I have Scream 6 at number 5, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I really did enjoy this movie. I was really enjoying it up until those last 15 to 20 minutes. I think it does a lot of things different. I think it pulls it off great. Love the New York setting. I love the characters that we continue to get with these newer installments. So yeah, as of right now, I feel like Scream 5 and Scream 6 are kind of like on that same level. After a rewatch, it could change. This could be a Scream movie that, grows closer to my heart the more I watch it. This could be one of those where it grows on me even more and more, every year that I watch it. But as of right now, I think that is a fair ranking of the Scream franchise, at least for me. I think 3 out of 5 stars is a fair rating for this Scream. I could see myself moving it up half a star upon rewatch. But I mean, hey, man, it's a Scream franchise. This is probably the most consistent horror franchise, at least slasher wise, that we've gotten. Now, my favorite still is personally Halloween. But I'm one to admit there are some terrible movies in that franchise. Some are guilty pleasures to me, but I think Scream has stayed the most consistent when it comes to product wise. And yeah, man, if you're a Scream fan, I really do think you will enjoy this installment. And I'll say one more thing that I didn't like about, how they handle Gale Weathers is in Scream 5, when Dewey dies, that whole, all of the shit goes down. We hear Gale say how she's not going to write about this shit. I think it's time that I write about something different, write about something that deserves it. And that was Dewey. But she never does write about Dewey, and she ends up writing about the killings once again, going back to her old Gale Weathers way. And I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying before of how, with legacy characters like Sidney and Dewey, we can feel more of their character arcs in this franchise as to where, Gale can't really carry the franchise like the other legacy characters because she still is going back to her old ways. We don't see as much maybe character growth as we would like to see. But yeah, she just, goes back to her old ways, write about the murders again. I do like how she dodged that punch. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I love how she dodged the punch from Sam when she was trying to interview her in the beginning about the murders, being connected to her, saying her first rodeo. And then we see Jenna Ortega just come up and, hit the shit out of her. But I love that we get that little reference from the few times that Sidney Prescott has decked her in the face. But yeah, going back to her old ways. So I wasn't the biggest fan of that. I think it would have been really nice to pay that respect to Dewey's character. You know, I think Dewey's character deserves that. So come on, Gail, do better, do better. But yeah, you know, there's definitely going to be a Scream 7. I think they're going to do exactly what they did with, you know, the Halloween trilogy, you know, with this new requel reboot. So there's definitely going to be one more. And man, it better be, it's going to be better than Halloween Ends. I know it will be. It better be, because, you know, that's not a high bar to set anyways, because Halloween Ends was fucking awful. But there's going to be one more Scream movie for sure. And I want it to be balls to the walls, go all out. Sidney Prescott better be in that movie, you know, have her survive, kill her off, do whatever you want. But Sidney Prescott needs to be in that final movie. You know, make it grand, man. Make it grand. I'm excited to see what they'll do for Scream 7. And yeah, I mean, this franchise just continues to put out quality product. It really does. But all right, that's going to do it for my review on Scream 6. Let me know what you thought of it. If you stuck around to the end of this review, thank you for listening. Make sure you give us a rating wherever you're listening to this, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, you name it. Make sure to follow our social media accounts. And yeah, it's just been an absolute pleasure to talk about Scream with y'all today. One of the best horror franchises ever. So yeah, thanks again for listening to this review, and I will see you guys next time on Blake's Takes.